Hello everyone and welcome back to Dearsley and to part 2 of my upgrade of these two Railroad A4 Pacifics. Since making part 1 I've had another change of mind about the naming of the British Railways. Mallard. I originally chose Guillemot to find that Guillemot never ran with a corridor tender, and then I decided that Kingfisher would be a good replacement. It's still a bird name which I quite like, and it did run with a corridor tender, but Kingfisher carried a plaque on the side, rather like Mallard did, which didn't make it to my mind a typical A4 Pacific. And although it make an interesting modelling project, I wanted a more typical A4 for my railway, so I've decided on Woodcock, which is even from King's Cross shed and has the same shed code already printed on the front, so that makes the conversion a lot easier. So I've ended up with this sort of pack that you get from Model Master. It has the brass photo etched nameplates. These are the Kingfisher ones that I'm not going to be using on this occasion, and also it has the decals for 60024 for the numbers. So these are the same things now from Model Master for 60029 Woodcock and for the Woodcock nameplates. I've also bought some etched brass shed plates to go on the side of the cab. Before I go ahead and apply the new decals and nameplates, I'm just going to point out the little bit of detailing I have put on the front of both locomotives, which are the lamp brackets. I've got the lamps on order. They're a printed lamp from Model U. They're doing me some other printed figures actually, so I'm waiting for these to come through still, so I might have to show you them fitted on another video, because I'm going to crack on and finish this now. So these obviously need painting, but they're applied, and I've got some link couplings to put on there. Firstly, I'd like to do some sound comparison tests between the 3 speakers I've bought, the 2 round speakers, including the Hornby speaker that came with the decoder, the American one, and a Sugar Cube speaker by Zimmo. I won't talk over the recording, so I'll go from one to the other so that you can hear a direct comparison. I'll now just compare the chuffs by running each locomotive along the track. Well, did you hear any differences? No, I must admit, the differences are very slight. More of a personal preference thing, I think, and even then you'd be hard pushed to know which speaker was in which loco. Anyway, the third one I've got is the Zimmo Sugar Cube speaker. It's slightly different design, I'll show you in a moment, but I have just fitted that speaker into the Mallard tender, and I'll switch that on and go through the sounds and see if you can hear a difference for that. Now, I must admit, I can hear a difference with the Zimmo speakers. The American one was in the region of £6. These Zimmo Sugar Cube ones are a little more expensive at £10. And finally, I'll finish this sound test off with a listen to the chuffing produced by the Zimmo decoder. One useful thing about the Zimmo speakers is that if you've got a tight fit, then they're very handy indeed. I've got TTS sound in my A3 Flying Scotsman, and this has the decoder in the locomotive, not in the tender. So I was able to fit a Zimmo speaker in here underneath the chimney in the smoke box, and it sounds very good. I'll show you how I fitted the Zimmo speaker into the A4 tenders now. I said the design of the Sugar Cube speakers was slightly different from ordinary speakers. In fact, they're quite radically different. They're just little boxes, they come in housing, and they're really quite small. I find the best way, because you can't use the mounting plate that comes with the Mallard, so I'm just going to stick these in with, I use number plate adhesive pads. They're good strong pads and they're quite thin. With the sound chip and the speaker removed, I plan to fit the new Sugar Cube speaker in this position here. I've checked it will fit under the tender, and it'll leave this space then that I can put the decoder in here. However, there's sort of a protruding post which doesn't really do much except just locate this, but it's going to be screwed down anyway. So I've taken the two screws out of the mounting plate, and I'm simply going to cut that off with some sprue cutters, because I don't really see the need for it. That can come out, and then that, it's not quite flush actually, so I'm going to take a bit more off. Now there's still enough of a stub to locate into the hole, but it's now down level with the plate, so now I can find room to stick the speaker, and I'll use, still got the card on it, but that's a little square cut from the number plate mounting tape, and I'll peel the sticky bits off and mount this right back here. Here now everything is finally fixed back and soldered into place. There's the speaker on its mount, and the decoder now sits in between the two. I've just wrapped it round to the wiring loom that comes off the tender, so it holds it secure. I just have to put the tender body back on now. I finished putting the new floor in the coal tender there, and I've also painted it a matte black and painted the inside of the tender to hide where I cut, and it makes the whole thing look quite nice now. It's fairly shallow. You can see the I've sealed and strengthened around the edges with some plastic card strips, and there should be plenty of room in there to fit the sound decoder. So now I can continue with the lettering, applying the decals for the new LNER style. And I was given passed on a tip from one of my subscribers, William Glover, who suggested that I needn't worry to remove the old numbers. I can simply put the decals over the new ones, which I've started to do here, and it works really well. You can see it's quite shiny, and I've put a couple of layers of a clear varnish on to take the decals. This has left a bit of a watermark stain here, you can probably see that, but that will go when I put a sealing coat, a further coat of clear varnish over the top. Okay, you've caught me now doing the final painting details on these A4s, which is painting the lamp irons, which concludes all the detailing really. The only thing I've got to do is put on the screw link couplings, but I'll do that at the end. So all the painting, detailing and application of decals is now finished. So I'm now well on the way to finishing these locomotives. Earlier in the conversion I showed you some watermarks on the tender left by applications of decals, and that applies actually to all the decals now, the numbers and these overhead cable flashes. Everywhere I've put them I've had to put a little bit of gloss varnish to take the decals so they stick properly, and then I've had to seal them with some more varnish. I also sealed the name plates and the little brass shed code plate here with the same gloss varnish. So the finish is now patchy, but with everything done I can give the whole of the body and the tender now a couple of coats of matte varnish sprayed lightly on, just to bring everything together. I noticed earlier a big weight difference between the Flying Scotsman and the 2A4s. The difference in weight, I'm sure, is in the tender, which is quite heavy on the Flying Scotsman. So what I've done, I've set up the kitchen scales here and zeroed them with this piece of mirror glass laid across so that I can put the locomotives on it. So what I'm going to do first of all is put the Flying Scotsman on. I don't know whether you can see that on the camera, but it weighs 488, 89 grams. So I'll put 488. Now I'm going to compare that with woodcock, and I've already put some of the divers weights in here, but you see that's 100 grams lighter. That's 388 grams, 388, and gannet should be a little lighter because I haven't put the any tender weight in it yet at all. 370. Which is more or less the weight it would have been out of the box, although I have fitted a decoder in it. But it's nearly 120 grams lighter than Flying Scotsman. So I'm going to work out some weights I'm going to put in. I noticed when I ran Flying Scotsman there was a little bit of wheel slip. So perhaps I won't bring it up to the 488 grams of Flying Scotsman. Perhaps I'm going to aim for 450 grams. So that means adding 70 more grams into gannet. I measured out 70 grams of the fine lead balls, but they filled all of the space I had, leaving me not much room for coal. So what I'm going to do in gannet is, instead of putting 70 grams, I'm going to put 40 grams. So I've zeroed the scales with this little measuring beaker to zero, well, obviously to zero, and I'll gently pour in some of the lead micro beads. Actually that's 28, 31, 34, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. I measured out 70 to do the test, so left in this little box should be about 30 grams. So I'm going to pour it into the tender and see how much room that leaves us for coal. Yep, that's a little better. I need to just spread it around a bit. I'll pick it up and give it a bit of a shake in a moment, but I'll just gently settle that down. Yeah, that's better. I'm going to glue that amount in. So I'll re-measure and re-weigh them and get woodcock weight adjusted so that these two locomotives are about the same. I'm quite happy with that. The lead now is added and I need to just glue it in place in the same way as you would do ballast. Both locomotives now weigh the same at about 415 grams. I use a water-based matte acrylic varnish to level down the sheen to an overall matte colour before applying the weathering, and as it's water-based it doesn't evaporate as quickly as the alcohol-based ones, so I use a hairdryer just to dry it as I go. I used to use an aerosol, but I find the jet is uncontrollable, and it's a little too fierce, I think. I like the control the airbrush gives. Once the matte varnish is applied and it's dry, I'm now going to put a sheen over this with a sort of a coat or two of gloss varnish. I don't want it to be shiny. I know a lot of the preservation locos are very shiny, but I certainly want a sort of a sheen on it. So I've protected the running gear from and the pickups from this varnish. Again, I'm going to apply this with the airbrush. I've started the weathering, and I'll just do a little bit more. I'm using a grime mix of flat earth and black, mixed to taste really. I quite like it slightly dark, but a sort of a overall track colour, but really it doesn't matter as long as you're happy with it. But I like to apply it with a motion running to give the wheels an even coating and to make sure the motion doesn't stick. I'm now going to put a darker black soot coat along the top here. Gannett is going to get a much lighter weathering coat, but nonetheless I want some sort of track grime along the bottom, particularly along the balancing, but I don't want to overdo this. Again, I've got it running on the rolling road. And finally I'm going to put some real coal in the tender. What I have here actually is a packet of artificial coal, which is quite fine, and I might use a layer of that over the lead microbeads just so none of them dry, just so none of them show. And then I'll use real coal to show in the tender, you know, for the final look. I bought this from eBay. It would be nice to have said I got a lump from the tender of the Flying Scotsman when I was in York, but I didn't. But you can buy it from eBay, and the nice thing with real coal is the lumps are in variable size. So what I do is crunch it a little smaller with some pliers, and I'm building up a supply of it in here. So I'll put a few bits there, and then simply you take a few of the lumps. Be careful not to trap your fingers in the pliers, and crunch it up into the little pot. Anything that ends up in there is too big, I'll pick out afterwards, but just crunch as much of this up as I need. So now I'm going to put the coal in the tender. I'm going to start with a layer of the artificial coal. Now I'm going to add some of the real coal from the yoghurt pot. The odd lumps fallen in there, which might be quite a nice feature actually. So I might place a couple of lumps in there when I fix the coal in place. But I think that looks really good. So now I'll seal that in the normal way I do ballasting. Obviously I'll mask off round here and wet that with some soapy water, and then drop some diluted PVA in there to seal it in place. That's this conversion finished. I'm really pleased with the results. I like particularly the differences between the two types of tender, so I'm very pleased. I hope you've enjoyed these two videos, and please subscribe, and thanks for watching.